All right, welcome everyone. We're just going to give a few minutes for everyone to get logged on. Thanks for joining us tonight. We'd love to know where you're logging in from, so go ahead and drop that in the chat. I see some folks from California, West Virginia, North Carolina. Let us know where you're from. Iowa, Canada, welcome. All the way from Maine to Florida. Awesome. And I can see by some of these states, some of you have already started your school year. Congratulations and welcome back. I'm from Massachusetts. We've got a few more weeks to go. Welcome, everyone. We're just giving everyone a few minutes to log in. You can type in the chat where you're from. Oh, congratulations, Virginia started on Monday. Yep, some people are already back at school. Some people are savoring the last few weeks of their summer vacation. All right, great to hear from all of you. Yep, some people have already been back in school for a week and some don't start till September. So we're kind of in that sweet spot of right at the very beginning of trying to think about going back, and some of you are already back. So great. So welcome everyone to our webinar tonight called Empowering Educators, Proactively Prepare for a New School Year. This is a book launch webinar, so we are super excited to be releasing some new publications from the Center for Responsive Schools. And our goal tonight is to introduce you to some of the content of a new book series by hearing from some of the co-authors of these resources. And we'll be giving away some of these books during our webinar. So we're so excited that you are able to join us live, and hopefully you can participate in the giveaways. So we're super excited. My name is Kristen Vincent, and I'm the Assistant Director of Marketing at CRS. And I just want to explain a little bit about the format of our webinar tonight. Some of you might be very familiar with webinars. We can't see you, but we know you're there. And you can see us, and the way that we can communicate is through the chat feature. So feel free to use the chat to make some positive comments. If anything our panelists share resonates with you, feel free to jump in and agree. Just let us know what you're thinking. And you can make sure that your chat is set to host and there's a couple options there, host and panelist, or everyone. So feel free to set it to everyone if you'd like to communicate with everyone on the webinar here tonight. You can certainly also use the Q&A feature if you happen to have a question specifically for one of the panelists or for me about the format of the webinar or something that's working. But it looks like many of you have already used the chat feature here to let us know where you're tuning in from. And I just want to remind you that you will receive a follow-up email in a few days containing a link to the recording of this webinar, and a recording of the webinar will be going on the Responsive Classroom YouTube channel and onto our website as well. So you can feel free to share it with anyone who might be interested in seeing the recording of this and learning about these new books. So I will introduce you to our panelists and then have them introduce themselves to you. So like I said, I'm going to be the moderator and host tonight, and I am the Assistant Director of Marketing at the Center for Responsive Schools. And we have three co-authors with us. We have Becky Wainless, Amanda Stessen-Blevins, and Brian Smith. So we're going to start with Becky, and I'll have her introduce herself to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Becky Wainless, and I teach second grade in New Albany, Ohio. I'm also a consulting teacher with Responsive Classroom, and I'm going into my 17th year in education. So welcome. I'm excited to be here with you all.
Thank you so much. And Amanda.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Amanda Stessen-Blevins, she, her. I teach and learn and live in Brooklyn, New York. I am currently Zooming in from Syracuse, New York, due to childcare for the summer, childcare needs for the summer. So hello, upstate New Yorkers. I feel one with you all this evening. I teach second and third grade English as a new language at a public school in Brooklyn at PS 516, Sunset Park Avenue's elementary school. And I also do presenting in the summer for the Center for Responsive Schools. And I'm excited to be here with you all.
Great, thank you. And Brian.
Hi, I'm Brian Smith, and I do my teaching and learning in Houston, Texas. I've been in education for 21 years, and I'm currently the head of student life, which is basically like an assistant principal at a private school in Houston. And I'm also a teacher during the summers for the Center for Responsive Schools, and have been doing that for about 5 years.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm so excited that you were able to join us tonight. I know you have a very busy summer with presenting and balancing some vacation time, and it was a very busy year for all of you contributing to these books. So the content of the webinar tonight comes from these new books, which are available for pre-order in the Responsive Classroom bookstore. They are available for pre-order, and we just found out they should be shipping sometime in early September. So I'll drop the links to them in the chat. But we're going to go ahead and get started with our first question. And, these books are entitled Empowering Educators. And so I'm wondering, what is a takeaway from your book that is essential to empowering educators so that they can launch a successful school year? So we'll start with Becky.
Yes. What I love about a new school year is that it brings new opportunities. So every year is a fresh start. So I always think to myself at the start of a new school year to let go of the things that happened the previous year, and give myself an opportunity to start anew and start fresh. What I love about this series in particular is that it provides educators with tools, tips, and a lot of different ideas on making your school year the best one yet. So.
Great. And Amanda, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, just adding on to that, this idea of an opportunity, I think what's really powerful about this series is that it gives a lot of strategies and techniques and real examples that inspire more ideas. So you can use what's in the books, but you can also use it to inspire and find your own voice and your own creativity in the space. And I think that's the real link to this idea of empowering is finding what suits you and your needs and your students and your community, and really taking it from there.
Absolutely. And Brian, anything else to add there?
Well, these books are, like you said, they're so full of wonderful examples, personal examples from all of us, and ones that we've seen. And I think that it really helps encourage teachers to view their students through a lens that lets them see the whole student, like the strengths, the areas of growth, what makes that student significant, and how they can be guided to achieve their potential.
So important. So we know that knowing our students is so key to having a successful school year. So knowing our students developmentally, culturally, individually, that's part of the proactive work that we do to get ready for a school year. So what are some insights to help educators get to know their students at the start of the school year to help build that positive community? And we'll begin with Amanda.
I'm glad I get to go first for this one because I will be the first one to reference yardsticks. I think that's an amazing tool. And what's really great about this series is that there's so many references to it within the different grade levels. So there's specific information about the 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade in the book that I was part of, but the same for the other books in the series as well. I think also something I really love to do in the first days of school are just getting a chance to observe. So the first time kids get their hands on a book. So I'm thinking more from the 3rd and 4th grade lens, but see the first time the kids get their hands on the books or a guided discovery and see how they start to, how they're viewing some math manipulatives in new ways or in the ways in the space this year. And just being able to kind of see that creativity from the first couple of days and really thinking about the inclusion from the very beginning is something I really like to do with the first couple of days.
Super important. And how about you, Brian? Anything to add to that?
Well, yardsticks. I'm sorry that I agree. If you don't have a copy in your back pocket, you need to have a copy in your back pocket. As far as the first few days, and I'm thinking from a middle school perspective, is really taking time to get to know your students. And one of the ways that I've experienced that is through our responsive advisory meetings. And, each of our students brings those particular strengths and personalities and quirks with them every day. And we can help provide them guidance. We'll help them find that significance within our classroom communities. And getting to know them through that process in the beginning of the school year is key.
So important for those middle schoolers. And how about you, Becky?
Yeah, in the beginning of the school year, prior to the school year and the first couple of days, I really like to focus, in addition to getting to know students, but also connecting with families and getting to know those families on a little bit of a deeper level, asking questions about the child that I might have that school year, in addition to questions about their cultures and just a lot of different things, their goals for students for the year ahead as well. And I find that by building a relationship with families right off the bat, it really just further strengthens the relationship that I have with the students.
Yes, also a very important component of getting to know your students is knowing their families as well. Absolutely. So we're going to do a giveaway, and I'm super excited. We're going to be giving away one copy of each of these books. So it's a series of books. So we'll give away one of the K-2 books, one of the 3 to 5 books, and one of the 6 to 8 books. This is our first time doing a giveaway on a webinar, so I totally hope that all of the teachers on here can bear with us, and we'll see how it goes. So I'm gonna share my screen, and we will let you know what you can do for the giveaway. So what we would like you to do is to type into the chat the grade levels that you work with. So if you work with 3rd grade, you're just going to type in 3rd grade. Maybe you work with all the middle schoolers. So you're going to say 5 through 8, and then your role. And I know we have a lot of friends on here who are our responsive classroom consulting teachers. If you could also add in there, if you're a responsive classroom consulting teacher, we'd love to know that as well. So we're going to give the chat we're going to give it a minute to kind of fill up with all of these entries for the giveaway. So share with us the grade level you work with and your role. So are you a 5th grade teacher? Are you an elementary art teacher? Are you a principal? Maybe we have some administrators on here. This chat is flying. It's a good thing we can scroll back and take a look. So I have asked Becky, Amanda, and Brian to scroll through all of these chat entries and to look for someone who teaches the level of the book that they worked on. And they are going to pick a name for our 3 giveaway winners. For, I should say, our first giveaway, because we're going to do another one later on. And so we want to make sure that we can collect your information because we have to get this book to you. So here's what we're going to do. When we announce the winners, we would like the winners to please set your chat at the bottom where the chat says to. And right now I can see that lots of people are sending it to everyone. If you could just make sure that the winners, you set it to host and panelists, and then you'll be able to send us your full name and your mailing address, and we'll be able to get a copy of this book out to you. So I'm going to start first with Becky. Becky, will you announce the name of the winner that you chose? Oh, you're on. There you go. You're on.
The winner that I've chosen is Dawn. So no last name indicated on her name tag, but just Dawn.
Okay. So if that person could set their chat to hosts and panelists and then type us back, we need your whole name and we're definitely going to need your mailing address. That would be great. And Amanda, who have you chosen to win?
Congratulations, Dawn. I've chosen Tracy K, grades 3-4 teacher. Congratulations, Tracy.
All right. And again, Tracy, if you could just set your chat to hosts and panelists and then send us your full name and mailing address, and our panelists are going to jot that down for us. And then Brian, why don't you pick someone to win the grade 6, 7, and 8 book?
I'm probably not going to do much honor to this last name, but we'll try. Maria Sinkovich is the name. Right. So Maria Sinkovich.
All right. So if those winners could get back to us with by setting the chat to hosts and panelists, and if you can just type in your full name and your mailing address, and we'll keep an eye out for those, and we will get these books out to you. Thank you, Dawn. I can see your name there. That's awesome. And yeah, these will be shipping on or after September 3rd. I don't know if anyone knows, but there's this paper shortage happening right now in the world. It's really hard to get materials printed. So we're doing the best we can to get these books out to everybody. All right, that was super exciting. Thank you, everyone. And don't worry, we're going to definitely do another giveaway. So I do have some more questions to ask our author panelists. So one of the ways that educators proactively plan for student success is through creating a daily and weekly schedule that includes a balance of time dedicated for positive community building and engaging academics. We know that that balance is super important. And so I'm wondering, what are some of the factors to consider when you're beginning the school year and you're setting up your classroom schedules? So we're going to start with Brian from the middle school perspective first.
Well, as an administrator, it's my duty to create those schedules for my school, or at least take part in the creation of those schedules. So finding time each day for students to kind of flex their social emotional aptitude is essential. Students need to learn and master so many of these academic and social emotional competencies. That advisory time each day provides a safe space for that to happen, and making sure to provide that time, along with some time in the classes for fun and engaging academic experiences and social experiences, is key, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And Becky, something to add about that?
Yeah, so along the similar, things that Brian said, with K2 students, just having an equal amount of, time learning, but also time playing so that they have opportunities, as Brian had said as well, to practice and try out those social and emotional competencies that we're working so hard with them to learn. And then also really being mindful about planning different energizers throughout the day to provide opportunities for movement. And then be flexible as well. So Amanda had talked about the power of observation in the first couple of days. I also like to spend a lot of time observing and sort of thinking through that schedule. If something isn't, quite working, being flexible enough to change that and look at it through the lens of students. Why might that time be tricky for us? Might we need to shorten that time or put an energizer somewhere or use a learning structure in that way? But yeah, just having opportunities for movement kind of built in throughout the day.
Super important. And how about you, Amanda? Anything about class schedules?
Yeah, echoing what Brian and Becky are saying, I think in the past I used to really utilize first 6 weeks as a tool to think about sample schedules, so I could actually get a visual and thinking about what's developmentally appropriate for the age group. And these books have those sample schedules, which I think is a really useful tool for having that visual along with a lot of the things that we've been talking about. But exactly the same thing, like outside time. When can I fit in outside time at a minimum of 10 minutes? Like there's so many amazing YouTube channels and videos that you can do in the classroom when you need to. And of course the energizers that Becky mentioned as well, but there's nothing like getting outside and running. And I'm so excited to be able to be back in person this year, to be able to do that with students. I think a lot of students are going to be re-engaging in some muscles this coming year. And I'm excited to be part of that, and that outside time. That's going to be a big part of the schedule this year.
That's a really important point. I do feel like last school year, due to all of the models of learning that were happening, there was just a lot of sitting, a lot of staying in one place. So all of those like active and interactive energizers and teaching structures that we love to use, we just couldn't use with students because we had to keep distance or just kind of minimize our movement. So I agree, getting back to those, big group activities outside, maybe, Becky, getting in some energizers in the classroom, and even ones that you can do kind of in your own space, but getting back to more of really meeting the students' needs for movement is really, really important. I had someone was asking a question in the chat just about the first 6 weeks of school. And that is a book that, we publish at Center for Responsive Schools. And so someone was asking if these books help with the first 6 weeks of school. And my answer is absolutely yes. And so it sounds like with schedules and things like that in here, it's really helpful, to complement that book. I don't know if any of you want to speak to like the similarities and differences between the first 6 weeks of school and picking up one of these resource guides. Becky, do you want to say something about them?
Sure. Yeah, so the first 6 weeks of school is structured in that it has a specific plan really for the first day. And then also for each week, it gives you suggestions on lessons that you might do, guided discoveries that you might, use with different materials, different interactive modeling options and things of that nature, and also setting up your morning meeting. So from my perspective, it feels like it's a bit more structured. So whereas empowering educators focuses on the 4 domains of responsive classroom life, and each chapter is dedicated to different strategies, tools, and tips to bring those 4 domains to life in your space.
Thank you. That was really helpful to know the similarities and differences between them, but it sounds like this will really, really complement lots of the resources that we have available. So shifting gears a little bit, we've been thinking about the daily and weekly schedules that we create for our students in our classroom. Also part of setting up and starting out a new school year are creating safe and predictable physical classroom environments. So we're doing a lot of planning before the students arrive. And then we're often, adjusting and shifting and growing with them, our classroom environment. So what are some of the things that you prioritize in order to create a learning environment that promotes autonomy and responsibility in your students? Because we know physical spaces can really affect how people feel and learn. So we'll start with Becky for this one.
I really like to prioritize opportunities for students to co-create spaces in our classrooms. So at the start of the school year, I have a general idea of how I think the classroom furniture might be set up, especially this year based on certain guidelines that we have. And also, different areas of the classroom. However, even though I've sort of thought that through myself based on the needs of the students that I are getting this upcoming school year, I always want to keep in mind what parts of the classroom can we create together to further build that community. For example, in kindergarten, first grade, and second grade, birthdays are really important for students. And so at the start of the school year, one of the things that we do together is we co-create a birthday chart. And then I also sort of think through, okay, can we co-create the classroom library? So maybe we look at all the books and decide what bins they go in and label them. And by doing that with students, it only further engages them into the classroom and helps them take ownership of our space. So that classroom space is no longer my classroom, but it turns into our classroom for everyone.
Building the space with the students. Yeah, so important, especially when they're young too, and they're learning about school and what is school. And so they can kind of see that it's a shared space between the teacher and the students. Brian, do you have anything to add to that?
Sorry.
That's
Thinking
okay.
about our the days and weeks leading up to the school year and all of the things that we have to think about, spending my time and encouraging others to spend on their time working on the physical environment of your classroom. Will your students be able to navigate your classroom experience the way you would like them to? Doing a lot of reflection on previous years, what's worked and what hasn't worked, and then coming up with the most important proactive discipline strategies and the procedures that you're going to need to introduce and model and practice with the students. And having all that set in your mind before you even welcome them by name to your classroom.
Yeah, that's really important. And I know in middle schools, you're often stuck with some furniture, like, the desks attached to the chairs. Sometimes people are stuck with some furniture that it's really hard to kind of make those table groups or to maybe sometimes navigate the classroom. Teaching those routines and using that interactive modeling, so important even in middle school. Great. And how about you, Amanda? Anything to add about classroom environment?
Yeah, when I think about the physical space, I think about introducing it through the lens of our books in the classroom. And when I think about the books in the library in the classroom, I really think about representation. I'm thinking about Rudine Sims Bishop's ideas of mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors, and really making sure that that is a big piece of the classroom space. But with that, I'm thinking about my first couple of days of school and the read aloud that we start to talk about. So, thinking about Jacqueline Woodson, The Day You Begin, or Margaret Berry Wilson has a really great blog post that I'll put in the chat from the Responsive Classroom website, where she references a book called Rain School by James Rumford. That's a really beautiful book about a school in Chad, where the first lessons that the students get in the school year is to build the school. Like during the rainy season, the school gets washed away and the students have to start to learn how to build bricks, and they take care of the younger students. And when the school year is over, they the school gets washed away, but everything that they learned stays with them. And it's kind of this bookend that I have for the classroom as well, like where we talk about building the classroom together. It's really a blank canvas at the beginning of the school year, as Becky was saying, and we build it together. And at the end of the year, when we start to pack up the classroom, we reread the book again and talk about how we need to leave it blank for next year's students and all the learning that will be going. But as you leave the classroom this year, all the learning that you've had will go with you into the summer, into the next year. So I'll include that reference from Margaret Berry Wilson in the chat as well.
That's great. Thank you, Amanda. What a nice bookend to the school year, thinking about starting off with that and ending with it, and that whole way to visualize how you build something up and then you have to take it down at the end of the year and passing it on to someone else. I really like that image. Very powerful message. Brian also reminded me, which I just dropped into the chat, about the book we have for middle school, Building an Academic Community. So it's sort of the first 4 weeks of school in a middle school, but lots of strategies there for building those routines, that environment, that class schedule, and that responsive advisory meeting that really helps to build that sense of community. So that we just dropped that in there too. So thank you. Lots of sharing happening. I love it. So I think we're going to do another book giveaway. So y'all know how this goes now. So I'm going to share my screen and there'll be something for you to type into the chat. And Brian and Becky and Amanda's eyes are probably going to go cross-eyed with all of the entries flying through. And their job is to pick 3 different people to win copies of the book. So let me just get this up here. So we would love it if you could type into the chat the grade level that you work with, because that's important for us to know, and a favorite subject or topic to teach. So what are some of the favorite things that you love that pop up during the school year that you love to teach? It could be like a special unit or a social studies topic or something in writing or math that you love. Love, love, love. Oh, so many great ideas. Nice. Lots of different units and subjects. Cool stuff. Lots of research projects, book tastings. I love it. Really great. So we'll give you a minute to get your fingers typing and get those entries into the chat. And Brian and Becky and Amanda can scroll on through and pick someone. And again, we'll do the same thing. So I'll have each of them announce a winner, and then if the winner could set their chat to have it say hosts and panelists, and you can send us your full name and your complete mailing address so we can get a copy of the book shipped out to you. We'll start with Brian. Brian, did you end up picking a winner?
Yes, Tessa is the name, Tessa.
All right. And Nola, it just came up as Tessa.
Just Tessa.
Yep. All right, Tessa, congratulations. You won a copy of Empowering Educators for grades 6, 7, and 8. So if you could drop us your full name and your complete address, we can get a copy of the book out to you. So how about Amanda? Who is the winner that you chose?
Congratulations to Britt Johnson, 3-5 champion teacher, 4th grade reading, the Birch Bark House, and Indigenous history.
Those are her favorite things to teach.
Their favorite things to teach. Yep.
Great, great. All right. And Britt, you said was her name, right?
Their name.
Their
yeah.
name. Their
Yep.
name. Yep.
Mhm.
All right. Awesome. So they can type their address into the chat back to us, and we can make sure we get a copy of the book out to you. And Becky, who did you choose to win?
I chose Susan Spiegelmeier, and Susan teaches kindergarten, and her favorite thing to teach is STEM.
Congrats. So again, just set your chat to hosts and panelists only, and then you can type your name and complete address, and congratulations, everyone. That's super exciting. I love giveaways. So we're gonna continue on with a few more questions, and a few people have been sending in some questions through the chat and the Q&A, and that's great because we might have time to address some of those as well. We know that the start of the school year brings a lot of excitement for teachers, but also a lot of exhaustion. It can be a super exhausting time for us as educators. And I was really excited to see in your books that you've included strategies for teacher self-care, which I think is so important. It's not always high on our to-do list. So what are some of the pieces of advice that you have for practicing self-care, particularly at the start of the school year? We'll start with you, Amanda.
I'm going back to Becky's answer from before about how the beginning of the school year has so many opportunities and possibilities. This is definitely something that I am going to try to set an intention for myself this year. Starting with setting an alarm about when I leave. And actually, I got a really great idea from the book from Becky. I was reading we were able to kind of get a first glimpse of the book, and I was glancing through the parts that I hadn't had a chance to read yet. And Becky has this really great section at the back, what related to taking care of ourselves and self-care. That's all about setting like one day a month where you do like a catch-up day. And now that I have a child, and it's going to be a different year this year, I really love that idea of like, all right, if every other day I can leave at this set time and give myself that chance to walk, like I walk to and from school. It's like a 45-minute walk. So I listen to my podcast. That's also how I take care of myself. Listen to podcasts or audiobooks. But I love this idea that Becky had in the book, which is also why I love this community of educators, is that I'm constantly learning from all of you all the time. I'm looking at names that are so familiar in this space and my co-writers. I've learned so much by writing this, being part of this project and writing this book. But Becky's idea of having just like one day a month where you like catch up, and I'm sure I won't be able to actually stay at school for that, which is her suggestion in the book. I'm sure I'll be kicked out at 3, but it's like, if I can set a time with my family that like, this is the one day a month that I'm going to play catch up, and then every other day I can be fully present with my family. I think that's such a beautiful idea. So thank you, Becky, for helping me reframe my mind this year and thinking about the possibilities that could be if I actually really take care of myself and really set that intention.
What a great strategy. And that seems doable, right? Like once a month, like I can do that. And especially if you mark it on the calendar or pick the day, schedule it, so important. What a great strategy. Thank you, Amanda. How about Brian? What do you have for self-care, especially at the start of the school year?
Start of the school year, I'm going to need to read this section that Becky wrote. So I'll have to get a copy of the other books. So, at the beginning of the school year, I am always exhausted at the end of each and every day. And I was told a long time ago that the students should walk out of the building exhausted, not us. But still, what I do, I have to reconnect with everything outside of the school. And I make sure to continue my gym routine, even though I'm exhausted. And as odd as it may be, I add yoga to my routine for the months of August and September. I'm not very good at it, but otherwise I do it all year. I turn off my phone at 6 o'clock or put it on Do Not Disturb to focus on my family and my dogs. Those are the 2 parts of my life that bring a lot of joy. And if work's needed, I just take my time and do it in a really relaxing environment and really focus on all the positives to make it through those first few weeks.
It's a great mindset to have, to think about what went well, because we can often be our own worst critics and really think about all those negative things like, I wish I had done this, or, this didn't go so well, but really reflecting on what went well, because I'm sure if you thought about it, there's so much more that went right than, that maybe went wrong. So it's a really great reminder. And Becky, Amanda already shared that amazing tip that you had, but
thank you. Something else that I do in addition to that, knowing that the first couple weeks of the school year will be really busy, is I outsource and delegate as much home stuff as I possibly can. So for example, I know that after a long day, the last thing I want to do is have to think about cooking or making dinner, things like that. So I pre-plan, and my fiance, he takes on dinner for those couple of weeks, and we'll order out a couple of days, budget for that and all of that good stuff. It's just one less thing that I have to think about, especially, as you all know, after an exhausting day. Again, it's just one less thing. And then I also am really intentional about me time in the evenings. So similar to what Brian said, I put my phone on do not disturb. I do not check my email from school. I really protect those evenings to spend with my family and to do things that really fill me up. So I'll go for a walk with my dogs as well. I'll take a really nice bath or something, or I'll set aside 30 minutes to an hour to just read my book. And I find that when I'm really thoughtful and intentional about that and really protect that time, that I can then show up for my students as my best possible self. And I know that when I don't, and I'm not as intentional about that, that I'm not my best person for my students. So that's really important for me, to have that time and really think about that self-care, especially at the start of the school year.
Absolutely. Our teachers need us. I mean, our students need their teachers to be at their best selves and to be fully present and show up with energy. And, we can let that get away from us pretty quickly because we work really hard at what we do. So really great tips from all of you about self-care. And I was just so pleased to see that that's a part of empowering educators. It's a part of these resources, and it really is a part of us doing our best work for our students. So I've heard the expression go slow to go fast, and I use that expression a lot when I'm thinking about responsive classroom. We want to kind of start the school year slowly and proactively to kind of build the type of classroom that we're looking for so that we can extend that the whole school year. So taking time during the first few weeks of school to set up the school year for success is so important. So what are some of the keys to success that you focus on in the first few weeks of school that you then build on throughout the whole school year? So Brian, we'll start with you from the middle school perspective.
Wonderful. First few weeks of school, there's a few things I focus on. One of them is getting to know my students as well as I can. I want to know their personalities, their quirks, motivations, even down to what kind of music that they like. That kind of helps move a classroom forward. I like to make sure that they know I'm genuinely interested in who they are, not just what they know or can learn. I also spend a great amount of time establishing my procedures with students, using interactive modeling, providing them time to practice, help them gain that sense of belonging within the classroom community. Because once they know what to do at any given time, it reduces those misbehaviors, which can kind of derail a class's community. And last, find time for fun very quick in the classroom, very early. Find as many moments as I can for really engaging in fun, like brain breaks and activities that kind of push students beyond what they're expecting to have happen in the classroom.
Probably really important at the middle school level too, because maybe they don't have as many opportunities to get up and move. But that's so important to them at that age. Even 13 and 14-year-olds need to move. Yeah. Becky, how about you?
So glad you said fun, Brian, because that was one of the things that comes to mind for me as well. So I really want the start of the school year to be enjoyable for students, and also for students to feel like our classroom and our school is a place where they want to be, and also a place where they belong. So I spend a lot of time those first few days, few weeks, and continue that throughout the rest of the school year, to really plan activities, morning meetings, energizers, lessons that help just build that community again, and create that space where students feel like this is a classroom for us, and this is a space where I belong, I'm seen, I'm heard, and my teacher cares about me. So that's really my big goal for the first, couple weeks of the year.
Great. And how about you, Amanda?
Yeah, I completely agree with what everyone said already. I think a big piece is the relationships, getting to know our students, their hopes and dreams through observation, through collaborative games, activities, and really building that community in the first few days. But as Brian was also saying, thinking about the procedures, thinking about how are we establishing a positive community, thinking about my language, I'm really intentional about that language piece as well, and envisioning what the school year is going to be like. But really, in terms of empowering educators, also empowering our students to really make it our community. It's going to be our space, and working on that together as we get to know one another.
Yep, really, really important. So we had a few questions that came through the Q&A, and I thought it would be great to address them, because often I find if someone's asking a question, other people probably have the same one. So Britt is asking, saying that they teach reading for the entire grade. So this year, they'll be working with like 75 students. So what recommendations do you have for building the classroom space together when maybe you have different groups of kids coming in and out? And I guess that would be a special area teacher also, having an art space for grades K to 5 and kids rotating in and out. Any tips or ideas for building a classroom space that's used by different groups of kids? Becky, do you have an idea for that?
So when I've worked with educators who've worked with large populations of students or students across different grade levels and in co-creating the space, they've gone about it in a couple of different ways. But one way that I thought was pretty clever was to think about what your goal is and what it is that you want to create with students. And then when you have, let's say you have 20 groups, 20 students, for your first period of the day, you get their feedback on that, and then you build upon it throughout the rest of the day. And then you come back to it the next day and have a conversation with that first group again. Okay, this is where we got to with yesterday's group. And then you sort of start that over so that everyone has a little bit of a piece of that in creating what it is that you're co-creating together. The other way that I've seen teachers go about it is to look at different parts of the classroom, or maybe different wall space where you might have certain things displayed, and just have students in one group take ownership of this area, this area, this area. And one way that you might consider doing that is through hopes and dreams. So you might have one group display their hopes and dreams in one way, and then another group display their hopes and dreams for the year in a different way, so that everyone has their work and their hopes and dreams displayed in that space. But I would love to hear other ideas.
Yeah, those are great suggestions. I love like small groups taking an ownership of a certain, space in the room, and really that's their go-to spot, and they can see their hopes and dreams reflected there. Amanda, did you have anything else to add?
Sure, I completely agree with what Becky has already said. I just want to add on, as a new language teacher, I am often on the floor in the hallway. I'm curious about how that space is going to shift this year with spacing protocols. But something we often do is incorporate different parts or components of the morning meeting. So I'll greet the students really quickly, but then we'll do a quick share. So as an English as a new language teacher, the share might be something related to special news using an irregular past tense verb. My husband is a music teacher, so he's also kind of familiar with the space. He often asks, like, where's someplace you've heard music recently? So they get that share component in, and then they transition it. We all transition into the message to transition into the rest of the work, but also procedures. Like this is, even though this is the hallway, this is everyone's space. So like, how do we take care of it? Or this is your classroom, but right now it's the music room. So like, how are we going to take care of the space? So even though the classroom teacher has been working with students on how to line up or how to go back to your seats from the meeting area or whatever, like with a different teacher, you're going to have to teach all those things again so that it transfers. And so setting up students for success in that way is going to be really important. So like as an English as a new language teacher, like going from the hallway back into the classroom super duper quietly so we don't disturb anybody is really important. And just kind of setting students up for success in that way is another really big piece.
Great ideas there, and great, for you to see that from your husband's point of view too, with the music class, and definitely getting those groups of kids cycling through all day, every day. And Brian, from your perspective, that's kind of the middle school model, right?
It really is. And, a lot of what Becky and Amanda said applies as well. What I really liked about that question was, and maybe I'm reading into it, I'm not sure. It says, what recommendation do you have for building the classroom space together? And with middle school, you may have your classroom space organized in the way you would like, but bringing the students into some of the decisions, even if you already have some parameters set, but saying, hey, students, what if we do, how would you like to see this classroom organized? And letting them have a little ownership in the creation of the physical environment of the classroom. We'll get their, we're looking for that magical buy-in on even on the lowest level. And when they're part of it, they're certainly going to have a little bit more enthusiasm.
Sure. And also building that mutual respect. So you've asked them for their opinions. They're going to be in this space all year along with you. And I'm sure they have some great ideas that maybe you didn't even think of. And here they are, sharing their ideas and building that classroom space with you. And what a great way to extend that mutual respect between teacher and student, especially when they're older. They've had a lot of experience in school so far, so they could share some of that with you. That's great to invite that in. Another question that came through the question and answer is from Val. And when you think about teacher language, what is most important to focus on during the first 6 weeks? So teacher language is an important component of responsive classroom, and we're often thinking about what we say and how we say it. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on thinking about teacher language and a place to focus during those first few weeks of school. If anyone wants to jump in. Go ahead, Brian.
Well, I just think about teacher language when the first few weeks, so much of what we should be instilling is envisioning language. This is where our year's going to go. This is what I see you accomplishing this year. Building a foundation of positive momentum is kind of where my brain goes. It's a little saying. And trying to avoid more of the reactionary, communications, and just try to build on expectations with the students.
Sure, Becky or Amanda, if you want to add to that, Becky.
Yeah, Brian, I agree with you that envisioning language at the start of the school year is so important to help students kind of envision how that year might be. And then once you have the hopes and dreams and class expectations, guidelines, agreements, whatever you might call them, then you might move into the other R's of teacher language. So reminding language, reinforcing language, and then eventually redirecting language. So I would absolutely prioritize envisioning language to get you started. And then once again, you have those guidelines kind of set up, then move into the others.
Yeah, great ideas. Amanda?
Yeah, I was definitely going to start with envisioning language as well, Brian. But there might still be some, reminding or redirecting language on the first day. Like, let's just be real. Like, there might just be a quick thing that needs to happen, and that's okay. That's just recognizing that we work with humans and it's a new space, so we might have to do that. But I think going to what Becky's saying about reinforcing language is also really important on the first few days about like, what can we do in this space? Like in my area of third, fourth, and fifth grade, that like students have already been in school a little bit. They have some experience about what you can do, but this is now a new space and a new grade, and really giving them that actionable, what you're noticing them. And that's also connected to getting to know them too. Like, what do you see? What do you notice in your students is really also important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we definitely want to set those positive intentions, but we're definitely going to step in when someone is not, having some of that rule following behavior, and it's a balance, and it's how we approach that. So we're still going to approach redirection in a way that that student feels supported. And like you said, Amanda, we can let them know what they can do and why we don't want them to do what they're doing, because it's not a part of our positive community. So absolutely mixing that all together, but envisioning to set that tone for we're mathematicians, we're writers, we're gonna, do great things this year. Another question that came through, which I think would be great, because I feel like these books are books, the Empowering Educators Guides. Anyone could pick up these books. So you don't necessarily have to have taken a responsive classroom training or know about some of the responsive classroom strategies. That these books are really for any educator at these grade levels. And so Melissa asked a question. She said, I'm new to responsive classrooms. Do you have any ideas to get me started with my students? So Becky's like, yes, I do. Becky, what's a great place for Melissa to start?
I'll just say Empowering Educators. And the reason I say that is because it's so robust in its information. It really covers everything. So once you sort of dig into Empowering Educators, then you might have an idea of a practice or a domain that you would like to explore in more detail. And then you might seek out resources to support you within that. So you might be reading Empowering Educators and really land on teacher language. So then you might look into the power of our words to really kind of support you in your teacher language growth. So I would start off with Empowering Educators and see where that sort of takes you.
That's a great idea. It's really comprehensive and touches on a lot of then like specific strategies you could dig into. Brian, did you have anything else you wanted to add about where should someone start with a responsive classroom and thinking about middle school grades?
Again, I'm going to say Empowering Educators. It really does carry you through the mindset of responsive classroom overall. I've had a lot of folks who say that this is more of a philosophy than it is any individual concept or program or method. And Empowering Educators gives you that overview and can help move you in the right direction, along with building an academic community, which was linked earlier in the chat. For the first 4 weeks of school, it really lays out day by day how you can go about implementing these processes, which help encourage students to have that sense of belonging and significance, and while balancing it with fun.
Yeah. And there's a question that just came through from Andrea, who is a brand new teacher for second grade. And they said that you are all so knowledgeable. So thank you so much. And Andrea's feeling a little lost and nervous, remembering everything to implement. So any tips for new teachers? And please don't say just by Empowering Educators. Let's give her some like really specific, like day one, focus on what? Amanda, what would you say to a new teacher?
Yeah, I think in the same way we're asking our students for their hopes and dreams, I think set your own hopes and dreams. Like, what are you hoping what do you hope to prioritize this year? So really setting that intention for yourself and putting that up on your computer, your laptop, putting it in front of your students so that you are reminded of that every day. So that is the intention of the first day of school, but you do a little bit toward it every day. So if it's really about creating a caring community, so what's your language going to sound like on the first day of school? Or what game are you going to play to build like cooperation on the first day of school? I think, so this is what I always say in the workshops too, is like, it depends. It's always my answer. It depends on what your hopes and dreams are for you and your learners.
That's great advice. And I do see some other educators in the chat shouting out some advice as well, just to go slow to go fast, and just go slow those first weeks and be really intentional about what you want to build. And I just want to make sure I acknowledge a question in here that some educators have jumped in and answered for each other. So I love this community. Morning meeting was hard without gathering on the rug. I'm not sure how the space will be this fall. And some people were sharing some tips about what morning meeting could look like, or responsive advisory could look like if you can't gather together in a circle on the rug, or sort of in a clump together. And so, Brian, do you have any suggestions for that?
For your morning meeting?
Yeah, or advisory.
For advisory and for morning meeting, not being able to be close together is tricky. You have to work on, using, your announcements and your greeting are all going to still be the same. You're not going to see that change a lot. but the activities are going to have to be a little bit more distanced. Ball toss games, different games that allow the students to be around the classroom and still interacting on a personal level with each other, at least verbally, to help build that community, to share and to have acknowledgments heard. And also, we think about those fun games for middle schoolers to play. In a COVID world, it's kind of tricky, but at the same time, we can always find ways for students to play. Snowball is a fun, fantastic way of getting students to open up without having to open up. If you follow me there, they don't necessarily have to say their own feelings. They're just putting them out there. And it can allow for a group to engage in a good discussion about a topic that can help build that responsive community.
Absolutely. Yep. So we're getting close to the time where we have to close out the webinar. Unfortunately, this hour went by super fast. So I just want to say a huge thank you so much to Brian, Becky, and Amanda for joining us tonight and sharing all your wisdom and for contributing to these books. And you were co-authors, so each of you were able to work with a team to put together these wonderful resources. They are available for pre-order, and you can find them in the Responsive Classroom bookstore. And something else I want to let everyone know is we have 2 more upcoming webinars. We have one on August 25th about a new book coming out called Strengthening the Parent-Teacher Partnership, and one on September 15th for another new book, Make Learning Meaningful This School Year. And you can register for those webinars now from the Responsive Classroom website. Those are open for registration, and we'll definitely be doing some giveaways at those webinars as well. So congratulations to our winners. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. This has been a blast. And we wish you all the very, very best of luck as you head on out to start your school year. Some of you have already started, and we thank you so much for all the work that you're going to do for your students and for your fellow colleagues to support them, and for all the families that you encounter throughout the school year. So thank you so much for joining us. We totally appreciate it and love all the support and all the positivity in your comments in the chat. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a great night.